Welcome, my name is Tor Allen with the Rogers Institute in Sebastopol Grange. Thanks for coming out to this edition of the Sebastopol Carbon Conversations. How many of you, it's the first time you've been here to the Grange? Oh, that's two questions, right? To the Grange, and then to the Carbon Conversation. Awesome, thank you for coming out. I'll explain a little bit about what we've been doing. So we started doing these carbon conversations back in fall of 2019, and it was a series that fall and through March of 2020, and then things happened and we paused. But mostly we're focusing on climate solutions, and we were inspired by Project Drawdown, which is a book and a resource that highlights and has analyzed 100 solutions to reversing global warming. So we refer to that a lot. But also, one of the purposes of doing the carbon conversations is to just kind of share different topics and explore ways where each of us can dial in and be part of this. So that's kind of the bigger goal of one of these. And we do welcome donations. So if you haven't chipped in a little bit, Dina will pass the bucket. And I also want to say that we started doing this. One of our other programs is a solar energy education program, which is where we sell some solar kits, educational kits across the country. So we started doing these volunteer work days where folks have come out and helped us assemble some of these kits, and that helps us raise some funds so we can focus more time on doing this kind of stuff. So we have one coming up March 17th in the afternoon, that's a Sunday, and if you're interested, it turns out interesting people show up and they network and chat, so we call them not just work days, but network days. And we were doing things like soldering solar cells together, or a lot of little busy work stuff. And if you're afraid of soldering, it's not just soldering. And so rahus.org/volunteer is where you can learn more and sign up if you're inclined. So there's a whole bunch of topics we've already dove into, and they are archived on the website at rahus.org/SCC for Sebastopol Carbon Conversations. Most of them have been recorded, and there's usually some resources that are posted there with them. So if you want to, like we've done in the fall, we did water resiliency, bicycling, and composting was the fall topics. So you can go back there and check on those if you wish. I want to thanks for our partners this evening, Reuse Alliance, Rotary Club of Sebastopol Sunrise, and Guayaki, and many folks that have showed up here to share their programs. I will say that we are going to try to capture sort of there's so many people involved in reuse and repair that we're going to try to capture some of that in notes and share it out. So by no means is any of this a complete list yet. And then this is just a visual of the 100 solutions to reverse global warming, the Project Drawdown. It's online also, if you're interested in digging into that. So announcement about the next Carbon Conversations, May 1st, where the theme will be about visualizing the change you want in your community through art, and sketching out and visualizing sort of what would it look like if we were successful in adopting some of these changes we're advocating for. First, those are Wednesdays. June 5th is focusing on solar energy. And then on late July, I'm doing a Climate Victory Garden walking tour as part of Sebastopol Walks. And that's a program that every month they have a different theme, walking around checking out Sebastopol. So those of you that RSVP'd, when you signed up, I asked you a question, what have you repaired recently? And this is a wordle that you can't read, but curtains and clothing were common answers. and a lot of interesting umbrellas and sandals and knives and Birkenstock sandals and caps, yeah, furniture, all kinds of stuff. So kudos, you're very active in all kinds of repairing. And then the question was, what do you wish you could fix or learn to fix? Electronics was a common one. The last relationship. That was a pretty funny one. Anyway, so yeah, there's lots of potential here for learning to fix new things and so on. So tonight we're gonna talk about reuse and repair, and before Phoebe Schenker comes up from Reuse Alliance, I want to invite the folks that have been tabling to come up and just give us a minute introduction about your project and a thought about how people can dial in. And just to let people know that maybe they've already talked to you, but also just to remind them that to circle back once we've had this presentation and some Q&A. So you guys want to come up or?
Hi there, my name is Ayala. I'm with the Sebastopol Time Bank. And the Sebastopol Time Bank is really about building community and sharing knowledge. We've got a couple members here tonight, and one said something so eloquent. She said, it's like having a neighbor that you can tap on the shoulder that will help you with anything. Do you need a car ride? Do you know how to repair a leaky faucet? You can make a profile on our free website, list out the skills that you have. You can do a posting if you need some help with something that you're not familiar with doing. And the community will support you. I want to share this over to Portia now, who's going to talk about one of our upcoming programs.
Thank you, you did great. So first I want to know how many of you are Time Bank members? Yay, great. I'm one too. And my group, which is Community Bikes and Zero Waste Action Sonoma County, is putting on a repair cafe in cooperation with Chimera Makerspace on May 11th. And you are seeing hot off the press flyers. We'll be just starting the promotion shortly. How many of you know what a repair cafe is? Most of you. For those of you who don't know, this is an opportunity where you can bring things to get fixed, and we collect a number of people that know how to fix things, and they will evaluate your item, and if it's not fixable or they can't fix it, they'll advise you on what the next steps are. It's a really great event. We've done a number in the past, maybe 3 or 4, and this will be the first one for 2024. So this flyer will be at the Time Bank table, but do not take it.
Can I do without this? Shoot. My name is Matthew. I'm a public servant, not a public speaker, and I'm nervous. And the microphone amplifies the nervousness quite a bit. I work at the Sonoma County Library in Sebastopol. See how nervous I am? I can't even remember where I am. The library offers a lot of things that relate to today's topic. The one I want to highlight the most is on Wednesday nights from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock, we have a sewing club where you bring in your own things. We have sewing machines set out. We have some experts that can help if you have basic sewing knowledge, finish up your project. We have some projects that are pre-packaged for people to learn how to sew so that you can then eventually learn the skills to repair your own clothing. I'm not sure if you can repair new lamps with the sewing machines. It hasn't been tried, maybe. When I come up and do outreach programs like this and talk about the library, we always talk about our programs that we have and how there's 30 or 40 per month that we offer at the local library here. We have a calendar of all those events from the March. Our staff are always busy putting on story times, reading books to kids and helping them learn. We have after school programs to entertain people and help social emotional learning, all these amazing things. We never actually get to talk about like the obvious thing the library does, which I'm not sure if you know this, but we have books. And with those, you can read them and then you can return them. And we expect you to return them so that somebody else can use them. So it's kind of like the original reuse and recycle. And that is what the library does.
I have to follow the library. So I'm Nicole Ty with Green Links and the Reuse Alliance. I'm the chair of the Reuse Alliance. Green Links, we are a deconstruction contractor, so we unbuild houses, and then we bring our materials back to our store on Santa Rosa Avenue. So we have a reuse store and a lumber store, and 5% of the proceeds go to Reuse Alliance. So come shop if you haven't already and help support Reuse Alliance. Find the thing that you need for your other thing, and maybe someday we'll have a repair fair there. But we used to do repair fairs over at Stefan's shop across the way, if any of you had gone to that at Tech Taylor. Thank you. So thanks for being here.
How do you locate the buildings that you take? Like, are you getting a flow of them?
Yeah. The winter was a little slow, but we have contractors that we work with. Homeowners call us. We get referred by city agencies. Sometimes the permit, department, we have flyers there. And in some cases, Sonoma County just passed a deconstruction ordinance that will be rolling out in the summer in the county region. And then a couple cities will adopt it. But it's going to be a voluntary ordinance unless it's a historic building. And kind of the goal is to get people to learn more about it and give people time. They can deconstruct the building while they're waiting for their permits, which sometimes take a year or 2 years. So a lot of the people that are reluctant to deconstruct is because we take a lot longer. An excavator takes an hour, and we take about a week per 1,000 square feet. So if we have the time, then I think it'll be much better for contractors and homeowners because they don't have to worry about it. You have a whole year before your building gets permitted, so hopefully that will help. Thank you.
Does this work? So, for something a little different, women use the equivalent of about 86,000 trees a day, mostly from the Canadian boreal forest, or toilet paper just to pee. We are not big bidet users in the US. This is a prototype. I'm working on a little product that has a double-layered organic bamboo piece of cloth that looks like a piece of toilet paper. This is a hingeable, this comes off. You simply fill this with water, use one of these, drop it in the top, and then when you're done and are ready for wash day, the lid pulls back, you drain the water out, you throw them in the wash with all your other laundry, dry them, stack them back up. Women use about $160 worth of toilet paper if they live at home and work at home just for peeing every year. This will probably pay for itself in about 9 months. And then it's like free sailing. These things last about 3 years before they get too thin. Maybe you can plant seeds in them or something like that. Get a new batch. But this is a prototype, and this is what I've been working on for a couple of years.
All right, thanks everybody. So I'm going to hand it over to Phoebe Schenker. She's going to take us on a journey. So this is
Okay, we'll go forward. I feel like I don't even need to give this. That was like a recap of all of the reuse things right there. So, thank you guys for having me. My name is Phoebe Schenker. I'm the Executive Director of Reuse Alliance. And I'm going to start with the big picture here. You guys probably know this, but we live on a planet with finite resources, which we are using to make things. Lots and lots of things. Actually, human-made stuff now outweighs all life on Earth. And the making of that stuff accounts for half of global emissions. So you would think that we would take really good care of that stuff, but no, we throw it away at an equally alarming rate. I think the statistics about how much are really hard to comprehend. These are a few that kind of resonate for me. 5 pounds of waste per person per day, that's like a bag of flour. That's average American. 1.5 tons of electric waste each minute, and this is probably the fastest growing category of waste right now. That's just the stuff we throw away. We also keep lots and lots of stuff. So we are building larger and larger houses primarily to store our stuff, right? They have less people in them, but they're bigger, so we can keep our stuff in them. And most people have all of this stuff that they don't need. So how do we take this linear system and make it circular? You've probably heard this term, circular economy. Well, the great news, you probably didn't see this coming, but we already have a solution, right? It's called reuse. Originally, reduce, reuse, recycle, that was meant to be in the order of environmental benefit. So reuse, old idea, but I think this kind of helps to, this is a good way for me to think about it, and I hope this helps too. So if you think about the energy required to make a glass, maybe the glass of water that you drink out of all the time, you can save about 30% of that energy if you make it from recycled glass. But if you buy a used glass at the thrift store or something, then you're saving all of the energy, 100% of it, right? So the reason that we are focused on recycling is because companies looked at reduce, reuse, recycle, and they said, one of these allows us to keep making things and selling them to you, and so there was all this focus on recycling instead of reuse. But it's not just an environmental benefit. There are several co-benefits to reuse. So like so many of the solutions in Project Drawdown, right, there are other reasons why you would want to do this. One is the economic impact. So that tiny sliver of the pie there, this is another insane statistic, $5 trillion worth of new consumer goods. But the good news is that the resale sector is growing. And it could grow a lot more. And that makes actually really good local jobs, right? So reuse is a thing whereas you can be buying things from anywhere, these kinds of things are happening in your local communities. So it's a really good source of green jobs, and some studies like this one in Minnesota have shown that. There's also really important social impacts to reuse, right? Because you're keeping the materials circulating locally, you're creating more resilient communities. So, a resilient community is one where the resources are available within the community in an adverse situation. And I think nobody knows better than this community that in a situation like the wildfires, right? After that, to rebuild, to get new materials in was really challenging. But if you went to Green Links and got your reclaimed materials, they were already right there in the community, and people were able to rebuild much faster using those materials. So that's just an example of community resilience, but that's true of all materials, right? And then maybe most importantly, and this is probably the reason I got into reuse, is something I like to call the joy of reuse, right? And that is the feeling that you have when something that you don't need goes to somebody who needs it and finds its perfect next home, or when you're able to repair your favorite lamp and keep it in circulation longer. And I think that feeling is something that you can't really describe, but we all need more of that in our lives. So what does reuse mean for all of us? It means buying things secondhand, repairing the things you have, repurposing the things you can't repair, and avoiding single use of things. So I like to ask myself these questions. Can I get it used? Can I get it fixed? Can I use it for something else once it can't be fixed? And can I avoid buying it in the first place? Shout out to the library, where you can not buy a book ever, right? This includes, not just, I think these are the typical, reusables that we think about, avoiding single-use plastic, but this is also, rentals, borrowing from your neighbor, exchanging, anything that avoids having to buy the thing new. And the challenge is you probably can't do this a lot of the time because we don't have systems in place to be able to avoid buying a lot of things new. And that's where Reuse Alliance comes in. So we are working to create those systems. We work with practitioners that are doing reuse to help grow the reuse economy, to allow the practicing of all of those types of reuse. So when we talk about the reuse economy, we talk and think about these 4 different types. Resale, probably the largest and maybe most obvious. Repair, one of the most struggling of the 4. Repurpose, which is building materials, creative reuse, that kind of thing. And then refill. So when we talk to reuse practitioners, they often say that supply is not the problem. The problem is demand. And that makes a lot of sense when you go back to the tons and tons of things that we are making, right? We have enough stuff already. We need to get people to use the stuff that already exists. So how do we do that? I'm going to just touch briefly on these different things, and I'm hoping that this can be kind of a conversation. I know a lot of people in this room know a lot about all different aspects of this, but I'm going to talk about some of these tools and levers. So when we talk about resale, one of the important tools that we have is incentives and tax breaks for reuse practitioners, businesses. So you're gonna have to bear with me, I'm a morning person. I told somebody that. A lot of the towns now are working on climate action plans. Starting to think about how we are incentivizing reuse businesses to be in towns and what the kind of economic tools that the towns have to get those businesses, to retain those businesses, and to help those businesses survive. And then marketing. So one of the things that we are doing this year is kicking off our first reuse awareness campaign. So this is like a public service awareness campaign. How do we get people to think about reuse as a strategy, but also to make reuse not just something you should do, but something you want to do, something that's cool. So we are working with the California College of the Arts graphic design program. It's called TBD. And they are going to be designing a campaign to try to raise awareness about reuse, and we're going to be studying the messaging of that to see what is the most effective form of messaging. So we're hoping to run this campaign every year with a different graphic design firm in order to see what kinds of messaging resonates. And this first one is going to be targeted at college students and young professionals, people that just when you're starting to set up your first household and acquire all of the things and get your shopping habits, right? That is the time to hopefully start changing this messaging. And the good news is young people are already very aware of how broken the system is, and a lot of them want to change it. So more to come on this. Stay tuned for we're in the process, and it should be done by May. Another really important tool we have is right to repair laws. I think it's really funny every time, I can't keep this map, I mean this is a good thing, but nobody can keep these maps up to date because we are introducing and hopefully passing these laws in lots of states. Oregon just passed one on Monday. It's probably the best one in the country so far. So there are a number of different types of right to repair laws, and we should all be working towards a federal right to repair law rather than piece by piece across the state. But these are basically laws that require manufacturers to make it easier to repair your things and to create competition, the ability for small repair shops to also repair your things and for there to be more ways. So there have been there are a number of different sort of specialized ones around agricultural equipment, things like tractors, right? That farmers should have the right to repair their own tractors. What an insane world we live in, where that is not necessarily a given. But there are also more general ones and importantly ones around consumer electronics. And a really great turn of events in the right to repair is that California, we passed ours in 2023, we were the 4th state, and Apple actually changed from fighting it to endorsing it, and they have now started calling for a national right to repair. So that's a really big change. And I think part of why that's happening is it's easy to look at this, I don't know, does this map make you guys are you optimistic or possibly pessimistic? I'm like, oh, that's a lot of green. I don't know. But you have to remember, right, that this is in the context of a whole global economy, right? So these manufacturers are not just selling their things here in the United States. They are selling their things globally. And actually, there is a ton of right to repair happening in Europe, of course, leading the forefront, but actually all over the world. So I think it's a movement that's really catching on, and it's definitely something you can get involved in. I think the bottoms of these are getting cut off, but the iFixit is a great resource, and they do try to keep this up to date on what's happening. And repair.org is another great organization that will let you know how to get involved if you want to, get politically engaged to support these bills as they come up. I think there's something like 27 states that have them introduced currently. Of course, until we have that and an economy that is, supporting, like the ideal would be that you're able to get your things repaired all the time. As you know, that's challenging with a lot of things, and in the meantime, we have reuse and repair fairs. You guys are going to have one here in Sebastopol in May. This is a recent one we just did in Santa Rosa. We partner with the libraries to put on these repair fairs. And I think, the goal, you can see these are the kind of data from, in just 3 hours, this is the kind of impact that we can have. And if we could just be running one a month in Sonoma County, these numbers start to grow, and if you could be running one a month in every county in California, you can start to see what kind of impact that could have. So I think our goal is that these are happening as frequently, or become as common as farmers markets. So this is the next one that we're running, is going to be in Roanoke Park, Cotati, at the library there. We partner with Libraries in Zero Waste Sonoma to make that happen. If anybody wants to get involved, we'd love to have people. Yes?
I just wonder if you could back up to the right to repair issue.
Yeah.
I don't quite understand. I think I can fix whatever I want, so.
Yeah. Okay, so you can fix whatever you want if it was made before a certain date, and if you're able to open it and get the parts that you need to repair it. So the right to repair laws are mostly focused on small consumer electronics. So if you think about your, your phone, an iPhone or any other phone that you might have, you can't necessarily get into it, and you can't necessarily get the parts that you need because those are proprietary to Apple. So Apple, you can possibly take your phone to Apple to get it fixed, but Apple will possibly just give you a new phone instead, right? Or if they fix it, they can charge you whatever they want because they're the only people who can fix it, because they're the only people who have the rights to it. So contrast that with something like, Cuisinart or KitchenAid. Who has like a KitchenAid mixer? Yes, everybody has a KitchenAid mixer. So KitchenAid, you buy a KitchenAid mixer, and it's very easy to get into. Well, first of all, it's never going to break. It's probably never going to break, but you can get into it, and all of the parts in it are pretty standard metal, gears, things that you can get really easily, and so you can fix it very easily yourself. So the right to repair laws are designed to make it so that you should be able to fix anything that you want, and instead of having, right now we have like a real spectrum of some things are very easy to fix, but a lot of things are proprietary and can't be fixed at all. The right to repair, so there's three components to it: the access to parts, ability to get into the things. So if you've been to a repair fair, they even simple things, they make proprietary screws so that you can't get into the backs of things. And then the third is actually including manuals and instructions for how it works so that people can repair them. Yeah?
Is part of it the fact that they always say that the warranty is voided if you try and fix it yourself?
Yeah,
Do the laws address that issue?
Yes, the best ones do, so that, they're, like anything, they vary a lot in what they are, how strong they are and what they're restricting. But yeah, voiding the warranty, and not just if you go in there, but if a non-licensed repair shop goes in there, then that can also void the warranty. Yeah, and it's also it's a competition thing, right? That the parts, because they're controlling the parts, they can charge. If you've ever tried to get a screen repaired at a independent cell phone repair place, it costs a huge amount of money, and that's because they're having to pay a huge amount of money for the proprietary screen in order to not void your warranty. So it's trying to address all of those things. And we could have a much stronger one. They have some way better ones, but the one in California has kind of two thresholds. So depending on the value of the consumer electronics, there are different requirements. So I think it's $100 cutoff. The more, if it's over $100, there's certain requirements, and if it's under $100, it's less.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. And I should have said that. Stop me anytime if I'm talking too fast or if anything's unclear or if you have a question. Happy to. Okay. Nicole already touched on this a little bit, but another great tool in our policy toolkit is a deconstruction ordinance, and that is because a huge amount of the man-made things that we are making are buildings, and they represent a ton of embodied carbon, and then we knock them down and put them in the landfill. We are kind of at the forefront of this here in Sonoma County because we have adopted this model ordinance. The Zero Waste Sonoma adopted it at the end of last year. And now it needs to be adopted by every city in the county. And if they do it fast enough, then they will have access to this software called Green Halo, which will allow them to track the impact of all of the waste that is being diverted. So Sebastopol could be one of those first cities if people want to start a campaign here. But we are helping with some of the education and rollout of this ordinance. And I think, this is a great example of the kind of co-benefits, right? Because if you demolish a house, it takes, one person and with a backhoe, one day, and then they're on to the next. If you take it apart, then it's good job, skilled jobs for, 6 people for a week, right? But also, if you knock it down, you're spreading, lead dust, there's adverse health benefit, impacts, and you're, wasting all of that material, and the embodied carbon, especially of the wood, is huge. So this is another thing. I should have a map for this, but this is another thing that is starting. We're just at the forefront of passing these ordinances and getting these into the codes, and it's happening across the U.S. And there's a nonprofit called Build Reuse that's kind of tracking these ordinances as they get implemented. So this is another really important kind of trend. Yeah?
So the reused lumber, does it have to be scaled so that people know what grade it is when they're building another house, or what is the deal with that?
Yeah, so that is a really good I'm trying to think of a good word for that. A good comment, yes, and question. So it is true that the code requires when you're building, you have to have certified lumber, and I think it's like a lot of these things, right? We need to be investing in companies that are figuring out ways to do this, and there is the potential capacity to test and grade lumber, and that is something that could be being recertified for you to be able to use it again in a structural capacity. I think that's an innovation that we need to be investing in. Currently, you can reuse it for all kinds of other things, though, besides structural grade of lumber. Yeah, you want to add to that?
Yeah, if the lumber has a lumber stamp still on it, you can use it again.
If the certification is still visible, you can use it again.
So
Yeah.
a builder will use it. They're going to test it themselves and see if they're okay with it. But it depends on the inspector. But if you're doing something really structural, it helps to get an engineer. But generally, if you have number one, the engineers love it. So use that all day long.
It's all. I mean, for the most part, the reclaimed lumber is way higher quality than what you can buy now. So it's very ironic that just because it's not stamped, it can't be used in these conditions where it's probably much stronger than the graded lumber that you're getting. But it's a good question. Okay, and the fourth one is extended producer responsibility laws. It's a mouthful. EPR, often called EPR laws. Anybody heard of that before? Yes, okay. Do you guys know? We should make this more interactive so I do less talking and you guys do more. What are some EPR laws that we have in California? Yes,
Paint, mattresses, batteries, carpeting.
Yeah.
Go to the landfill, you'll see it all laid out for these opportunities to divert these materials.
Yeah. So my favorite one is paint, because I feel like that's a really clear one to understand. So an extended producer responsibility law is a law that says that the producer of the thing should have responsibility for the entire life of that thing, meaning that companies can't just make stuff and then dump it on us to deal with as, you know, consumers and to deal with its end of life. That they should have to have a plan for what happens to it at the end of its life. And it's a really important tool because, you know, ideally, it changes the way producers are making the thing in the first place so that they are designing it to think about its end of life. And so I think, you know, this is a really powerful concept for where we need to shift everything to, that you have to be making it to think about how it's going to be either, you know, designed to be disassembled and recycled at the end of its life, or design it to be able to be repaired or repurposed at the end of its life. But we're pretty far from having that. But I think the reason I like the paint example is that if you have ever go to a paint store, right? Paint stores in California are required to take back your paint at the end of its life, right? So when you use as much as you can use, you then give it back to them, and it can be recycled into new paint. And importantly, you can also buy recycled paint if you shop at the Habitat for Humanity Restore. And that is paint that has been created from that paint that's being recycled. So getting back to that supply and demand part, you gotta do the demand part too. But that was a law that required that the paint stores be taking back their excess paint, and it's been hugely beneficial in California. Sorry, did you have any question?
No, I just wanted to embroider your point a little bit. First of all, most of that paint is kind of beige, and you can use it to cover up graffiti. And when you mix a bunch of paint together, they usually make beige.
Well, that's true, but actually Habitat, they tinted all different colors, and there's a whole range, blue.
I just want to point out that there's a little bit of a dark side related to extended producer responsibility laws, because some manufacturers want to do it without being transparent. So it's really important that it be transparent, that the system makes sense, and it's not a matter of, okay, it's ours now, we'll take it away and do whatever we want with it. Instead, you want to know what's happening to these goods.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's true with all of these laws. They're only as strong as they are well written, and you know, there's a lot of greenwashing that's happening across all kinds of areas of environmentalism, but that's certainly happening here as well, and passing something that seems like it's beneficial but isn't. So I think those are kind of the four main policy arrows in the quiver or something. I don't know, that's a bad analogy, but I wanted to end here with just a little story of why we do this. So Reuse Alliance we're working with reuse practitioners, so we are bring them together and support them and advocate for reuse. But we're not the ones on the ground doing the hard work. And this is Kristen. I just met her last week. And how many of you have shopped at the Legacy, or do you guys know what the Legacy is? Yes, I know. Sebastopol has an amazing creative reuse center. You're really lucky. It's the only one in Sonoma County. But this woman, Kristen, started Creative Reuse Vallejo in downtown Vallejo. So she has made this amazing place where she is collecting the donated art supplies and arts and crafts supplies and actually giving them back to the community for free. It's just a suggested donation basis. She's also hosting workshops and artists in the space to be using those materials. And she's revitalizing a little block of downtown Vallejo, which if you've been to downtown Vallejo, can definitely use. She's making a small local business. And she's figuring it out all on her own as a basically side hustle. She still has to have a full-time job. So we are going to connect her with our creative reuse group that we are starting nationwide to get her some resources, and hopefully we're going to be able to help with some other advising. And I think she's, individually just one person who's created this business, this nonprofit, and she's doing all of those co-benefits, diverting this material from the landfill. She's creating this social community, and hopefully it's going to turn into a nonprofit that can be creating jobs in Vallejo as well, where they're needed most. So this is what we want more of, and we're gonna work hard to do that. And with that, I will open it up for any questions.
I love the question.
Yeah, you can try me.
Schools, are you engaging in schools?
That's really good question. We are not currently. We would love to, but the mission of Reuse Alliance is really to work with the practitioners and individuals. I think certainly there are a lot of movements in the schools, and I think, there are a lot of kids who are starting programs to do these kinds of things in their school. There's an organization in the East Bay called Culture of Repair that has started a small grant program to develop repair programming for K through 12. And a lot of great organizations are applying for that, and we are promoting that opportunity. I think that there's a lot that could be done in the schools, definitely, and hopefully we will find some people who want to take that on, and we will connect them to the network of reuse practitioners that we support and are connected to. Definitely, and also I think there are some efforts in Sonoma County now to transition schools to reusables, back to reusables, like school lunch used to come on a tray with real dishes, right? And that's not the case anymore, if you can believe that. So there are some programs and organizations that are working to get reusables back into schools.
Pause for a second. Hang on to those questions. But what are the folks on the tables want to come up here and be part of the queue answering? Be shy?
Yeah. Don't make me stand here alone. We could do line dancing if you come up.
And I think the main reason the mic's great.
Yeah.
Because I didn't mention, maybe it's too much. But one of the reasons we're using the mic is also our recording this, and I share this out. So, recording with terrible sound is not really good recording. So, but anyway, questions?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, I just wanted to add on to that discussion about schools and reusables. So there is in Sonoma County, just kind of started meeting, I think last fall perhaps, a Healthy Schools Coalition in Sonoma County, and like 3 school districts involved in the meeting. It's kind of getting organized just once a month. But definitely out of the list of things they want to change is definitely waste, food waste, and also packaging waste. And a lot of the schools the grammar schools now, I believe, are, or at least I know Santa Rosa, I think they use vendors for their elementary meals, school meals, and which means you're going to have lots of carbon. And so that's one of the areas to work in, ways to change that.
What's the group called?
I'm sorry, what?
What's the group called?
Oh, let's see, Healthy School Meals Coalition.
Healthy School.
Yeah.
Healthy School Meals Coalition?
Coalition.
Okay.
And Yeah, so maybe I can get information before everybody else is interested
Yeah,
in
because
joining.
they could vote.
We meet once a month, and, yeah, and there's some good stuff happening. Not fast enough as always. And the thing is that the school meals are free now for all the kids, so a lot of people are like getting, which is great.
Yeah.
The food's crappy and if the waste is a mess, then, not good, then that's not good, so it's,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
A question. Is the cost of deconstruction similar or just a little more expensive or a lot more expensive than the cost of traditional demolition with a backhoe or something like that?
Do you mean the monetary cost or the cost to the planet?
Well, I know the cost of the planet. Certainly.
No, I am just giving you a hard time. Obviously it varies depending on the complexity. Generally, it is more expensive to deconstruct, but there are a couple of things, and I'm a massive expert about this in the back of the room, but you can donate the materials to, as she said, they can be donated to Green Links, and then that you can get the tax benefits of that, which can help to offset the additional costs. So at the residential scale, I think it's not as much of a discrepancy. And we're working, the deconstruction ordinance is trying to add some other benefits. So it's going to change the permitting system so that you're able to deconstruct a building sooner than you're able to demolish it. So there's a time is money part of that equation. It's still, because it's more labor intensive, it's still, especially if you get up to, bigger, more institutional, larger buildings, it is more expensive to deconstruct it on a purely monetary basis.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I work with the Climate Center's Rapid Response Network. We do advocacy on laws coming into fruition in Sacramento, and we just made our huge list of bills to watch for 2024, and there are 3 producer responsibility laws, the most important one being a textile producer responsibility law. So I think we all need to watch the legislation and advocate for it. It's important because one state, California supposedly is a climate leader, and so what we do supposedly, I'm not sure I believe this anymore, other states will adopt. So.
And I think it's really important too, because I think that, the textile one is a great example of something that also, the law not only does it, put some of the responsibility back on the producers, but it creates by costing money by making it expensive to dispose of things, you create opportunities for new businesses and nonprofits to, exist to have an alternative approach. So, like with the textile, in other places where they have had textile laws like that, they are now able to, reclaim a lot more of that textile because there are nonprofits that are working to, that have an income stream from that, from meeting that EPR.
We try to tell people that you're wasting all of the resources that made that piece of clothing.
Yeah.
Which is a lot.
Yeah, totally. That's great. Yes. Okay.
All right, perfect. Now I have to project. I'm actually grateful for the mic because my voice is at just the raw.
We're good.
Tell me I'm
It's fine.
Okay, you can hear me. Yes.
Yeah, so I have a question probably for Matthew. It's a library question because there is a tool library in Santa Rosa, which is an independent organization, I believe, although the guy who runs it might be a librarian.
He was. He's an architect.
Not anymore.
He left the library.
The board members, on the board of the tool library, there's colleagues from the Sonoma County Library as well as architects and people in the construction industry. And that tool library is a fantastic resource where all of the tools that you need to repair your own house, garden,
And you're not all going out and buying something that might sit for a long time and not be used if it's at the tool library. So is there any sustainability in that? Do you know? I mean, meaning, is there someone going to take, is there any succession plan that you know of?
I really hope there is with the tool library. It has been going on for a number of years, so it does have it sustained. It's a track record, it's proven. Their board has had drama and has recovered from drama. I'm sure if there is, I hope, let's all take it over together if there's any, right?
Well, it's easier said than done, and they struggle. They're in the front of an architecture office. Their tools are in the back, and when they are functioning, they set up in the front of on weekends. But it's a real challenge, and actually this is something that we should figure out. There's tool lending libraries all over the country that do it through the library system. So that begs that question. Come on, man. Why hasn't it become part of the library?
Absolutely has to do with the buildings that we have in the Sonoma County Library. All of our public libraries are over 40 years old except for the Rock Park Library. And that one took miracles to get updated. That's a horrible excuse and I hate giving it. We're also going to have community partnerships. We don't want to develop, for example, we're next to the senior center. We don't do a whole bunch of the exact same programs at the senior center. The tool library exists. We're not going to do a whole bunch of programs that the tool library does until there's a time where we have a conversation about folding ourselves into one.
There's a lot less liability taking a book out rather than taking a
With that said though, what does the library do that's not tools, because that already exists? We do other things, and there is a lot of movement of doing a library of things is the terminology of how to do cake bands. I don't bake a cake every day. I don't need one at my house 365 days a year. Let alone them out from the library. Musical instruments is another example. If you want to just, I've got 4 guitars. I don't know why I have 4 guitars. I can only play one at a time. Let's let other people use them. So the main constraints for that is liability and space.
There are some other tools that the libraries.
The library does have tools.
Basic toolkits and.
Yeah, we do have a repair toolkit with plumbing, wrenches, heat thermometers. You can see where heat loss is in your house, where it has insulation. It comes with things that you can keep, like insulation wrap for the door frames. There's what electrical outlets or electrical outlets let out a lot of heat unless they've got some insulation in them. Typically they don't. You can check out these. It's called a DIY toolkit. Pretty cool thing. Find leaks and more energy-proof your house. We also have a lending library at our central library and at our Sebastopol library for electronic devices. If you don't need an iPad 100% of the time, check one out from the library and you can use it for 3 weeks. Cameras, sometimes you don't need to buy that really expensive camera, you just need it for the wedding. Check it out from the library, use it. We're trying to build those kinds of.
I have a question for an audience member. Kenna, just to call you out on the spot. Kenna's involved with the Sebastopol Climate Action Committee, and I'm just curious of your thoughts of what you're hearing here tonight and how it might may or may not shape what you guys do in Sebastopol with climate action.
Well, we serve the desires of the city, that things that they ask us to take on. So talk to your electeds, tell them what you want. They will tell us what they want our priorities to be. You can also, members on the committee and people who come volunteer with the committee who don't have to sit through all the official meetings and follow the Brown Act, but just get to participate and join a working group. And we do have a zero waste working group that is working on things. And I did take note of we are actively working on the deconstruction legislation to ask our zero waste working group whether that's a good fit for the political reality in Sebastopol at this moment. And one of the things that helps political reality is people asking their city council member for what they want. So if everybody called their city council member or emailed the city saying, we would like a deconstruction ordinance, it is amazing how big of a difference that actually makes.
Can I ask a question for the two of you? The city of Sebastopol has a environmental purchasing policy where we tier buying responsible things. Is there similar legislation in other jurisdictions, and is the Sebastopol City Council looking at adding a REIS element to that? I've heard about those local politics.
Good idea.
I'll let you handle other municipalities. Again, Sebastopol has some ordinances that are not actively enforced. And some of that has to do with momentum that got lost during the pandemic and the desire not to ask our local businesses to take on more burden than they felt like they could in that moment. But it does seem that the time for enforcement is coming. Whether the city has capacity for enforcement or is going to rely on citizen reports, it's really unclear. And again, all are welcome to join our zero waste working group and help us move these things forward, because it is our climate action committee. People are like, why isn't the committee doing this? And we're like, we're just a few people and we have jobs. So the more people who want to show up and move projects forward, the projects that get moved forward by the Sebastopol Climate Action Committee and then are recommended to council are things that someone comes with the desire and the capacity to move forward and the willingness to put in the time. So all are welcome. Do not hesitate. Do not be afraid.
Thank you, Ken. I have a question that involves time bank. And so maybe somebody can offer, what's something you fixed recently, personally? Anybody?
Well, I'm representing the time bank.
No, I'm not. No, so I want somebody randomly not associated with the time bank right now to say, what did you repair recently?
I fixed a pair of pants.
Fixed a pair of pants. Okay, so is there a need for pants fixer in the time bank?
Absolutely.
So if Leia signed up with the time bank as I can fix pants, what does that look like? Like, wow, because one of the fears is like, oh my God, I'm going to be inundated if I sign up for one more thing to do. But what does that look like? And she goes, I'm signing up to help fix pants.
Well, for one thing, the time bank works beautifully because people do what they can, when they can. There's no obligation to do everybody's pants.
You only fix pants between 6 and 7 hours a day.
So you set your criteria, yeah. That's
But the
interesting.
good news is that you can fix someone's pants and you get time in your bank account for doing that. And then maybe a couple of weeks later, you need help moving something around in your bedroom or something, and you can call anybody else in the whole time bank, and somebody will help you. And then you just give them time for the time that they spent. And so we're all kind of connected, and you don't have to do like even exchanges and that kind of thing. We're all helping each other.
Sounds pretty good. Diana?
Yeah, I thought I'd add another thing. I'm a new member of the time bank, and currently they gift you 10 hours when you join. I don't know if that's always been part of the model, but it's very generous, and it means that you don't feel any obligation in the beginning to start give, because you've been given already 10 hours, so you can start receiving, and then of course you just let your own timing work to when and how
You get back.
Yeah.
So what have you used so far?
I got a ride back from the airport bus, and I got somebody to pull out a stuck light bulb from a chandelier.
Nice.
Very helpful.
All right. I'll just sign up. And there's a social, right? No. Is there a get-together at some point?
Oh, we have four events a year. They're just connecting.
Yeah, networking.
Yeah, we just had 50 people together just a few weekends ago, yeah.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I hijacked the conversation.
No, that was good to know.
That's good. I think, yeah, you want to follow up?
Well, I did want to just circle back to the other jurisdictions doing that. I think that we are working to, get one of the challenges that reuse has, I think, is being seen as a base solution rather than a consumption solution. So one of the things that we've been working on is trying to get different towns to put a consumption chapter in their climate action plan, because it's really like once it becomes waste, it's kind of too late, right? It's about the consumption to begin with, but it's not that common that that cities are thinking about that as a whole category and trying to use some of the tools that we talked about to incentivize that kind of positive consumption.
It's also hard when you're trying to, have new businesses move in that sell things, that's a conflict of interest for supporting the merchants.
Yes.
That's a tough.
But they can still use things or repair things. Yes. It is a challenge, definitely. That it's back to the whole system being kind of rigged against reuse.
What did you call it? A consumption tax?
A consumption chapter. So, yeah, or, well, they're, different climate action. They're set up different ways. It's not that consistent, but, a lot of times it'll be like transportation, energy, water, those are kind of typical chapters in the climate action plan. And getting consumption as a plan, as a chapter, when you think about, like, it is what, 50% of global emissions, it should be a whole chapter. How do we think differently about our stuff? And cities can do a lot to support programs like repair fairs and to be, thinking about consumption more holistically, repurposing, deconstruction ordinances, all of the things that I talked about, can fall under consumption goals and chapter. Yeah.
Seems like a really tricky piece of reducing consumption is less sales tax, and I know right now, or revenue, and then the city council is really over $1 million right now, so it's a puzzle that I don't know the answer to, but hopefully it's something that can be figured out, because consumption does have to come down with this model of we want everyone to consume so we can get the sales tax.
Yeah, that is the system that's broken. But I think there are really creative ways there are other creative ways to shift that revenue, and I think there, a lot of the, the potential economic drivers in reuse, are businesses and services, and they are potentially generating revenue for a city as well. And so, a smart city can be starting to think about how to incentivize those kinds of businesses instead to balance out.
Are there stories that have or cities that have quantified that in any detail that you're aware of?
I don't want to say no, because there's a lot of cities, but not that I'm aware of. I think one of the real challenges, when I started is that, there's not good data around reuse. I think it's a really challenging thing to quantify, and, one of the things, we're working with the Economic Development Board of Sonoma County actually to do a better economic study about reuse. But if you think about a lot of reuse businesses are small shops. I'm really bad at remembering numbers, but there's a crazy number about like how many auto repair shops are 5 employees or less, like 90% of them, right? So I think because a lot of the businesses are small and because a lot of reuse is happening in a category that's not being captured by the makes, we have a good baseline to be able to say this is how big the reuse economy is currently and this is what it could grow to. And I think the same is true with with kind of diversion metrics. It's like stuff that's being reused is in some ways not showing up. It's not showing up in the waste characterization studies because it's not making it to the landfill, right? It's not like if you borrow a tool from your neighbor, like that's not being quantified in a lot of places. So there isn't really very good data about a lot of this stuff, and that's something that we're working to try to change because I think people need data to make the case. And we're not the only ones. The EPA's got a big effort underway right now to get better data around embodied carbon and how much emissions are being saved through deconstruction. And so there's a lot of effort going towards that now, I think, to try to understand it better. Hopefully without burdening it too much, because we know it's better, right? You look at the life cycle and it's like you're not using the energy to make the first half. Do we really need to quantify that?
I mean, I know whenever I fix something, like you got a slide like this, you feel good.
Yeah. How do you quantify that? I know. The joy of reuse, that's unquantifiable.
So, I want to thank Phoebe and everybody else that came and shared. We're going to give her a final round of applause.